Every cool.
NTD's David Lamb reports. California cities and towns like Santa Cruz are set to get a makeover, developing more housing units.
The state of California is in charge of every city and every county's land use plans now.
In October 2023,
There's the
California's
problem.
governor signed a set of bills to strengthen housing laws, expediting construction and affordability. Along with that, every city is to follow the housing element and required to build their, quote, fair share of housing. The 60,000 resident Santa Cruz has plans for multiple projects, including an 8-story apartment building and figuring out where to build 3,736 units in the next 8 years, amid current projects. Fred Keeley, mayor of Santa Cruz, tells NTD the city's trying to protect neighborhoods and instead increase the density and height of urban downtown.
The idea of where do you put 4,000 units in the city of Santa Cruz is the top of mind question. You spread that out in those 4,000 units out into every neighborhood, you're going to be having 4, 5, 6-story apartments all over neighborhoods in Santa Cruz, and the voters aren't going to put up with that.
He doesn't want any building taller than 12 stories downtown.
I think we should put 1,800 or 1,900 of those 4,000 units downtown. And I think 20% of that, after density bonuses, needs to be affordable.
Unfortunately, a 2023 report claimed that the coastal town has the highest rate of state homelessness. Despite this, its homeless population reduced by 29% from last year, according to the mayor, by providing shelter, services, food and assistance, and no longer permitting any large unsanctioned camps. Regardless, some oppose the construction, saying it changes the laid-back culture of the town, known for surfing and tourism.
Yeah.
Survey results from the Public Policy Institute of California say in July, 55% of California adults want easing of land and environmental restrictions to support housing. 59% said they want the state to require local regions to build a fair share of affordable housing. Recently, the city of La Cañada Flint Ridge in Southern California faced backlash from the Attorney General and Governor Newsom for denial of its housing project. One Santa Cruz resident believes construction in the area is a good thing, with retention of residents in the town.
60% of the homeless people who were offered shelter refused. In November, outreach workers encountered 350 homeless people and offered them services and shelter. 117 accepted shelter, 20 were already housed, and 213 refused to accept help or move indoors. This is not the first time the majority of the unhoused refused help. According to Breed, in October, 65% refused, and in September, 60% declined help. She said workers will continue to offer shelter in addition to 300 more beds that just opened. They are also trying to get people into treatment by implementing new conservatorship laws. The goal is to keep public streets clean and safe. But one of the challenges the city has in getting the homeless into shelters is the lack of available beds. In addition, most of the shelters are temporary, usually for 30 days. This means if an individual cannot find permanent housing within that time frame, they end up on the streets again. Others simply choose not to go for personal reasons.
A battle of not just homeless and unaffordable.
8th night of Hanukkah.
I know what that
Protesters have been planned for protests have been planned for multiple cities across the some causing traffic disruptions.
Well, President Biden's national security advisor met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today as those calls for a ceasefire continue. Reports say National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told Israeli officials to pull back on their offensive. But Prime Minister Netanyahu said that despite great pain and international pressure, nothing will stop Israel. The UN describes the ongoing humanitarian conditions there as a living hell. Well, the Department of Defense is once again urging Congress to pass
the money is running out. He says a lack of funds could impact Ukraine's war efforts and America's military readiness.
We need supplemental funding to provide additional support to Ukraine as we go into 2024. We've got about $4.6 billion left, $4.4 billion left, I think, now with the most recent PDA, and presidential drawdown authority, and about $1 billion left in replenishment funds.
Congress has approved more than $110 billion in aid for Ukraine since Russia's February 2022 invasion. It hasn't approved any new funds since Republicans took over the House from Democrats last January.
Wellstar is closing yet another care center vital to one Metro Atlanta. I'm
And we've got I have to rest by tomorrow. As we load into the weekend, it's changed. It's way windy.
Yeah.
Details next. Councilwoman-elect Keisha Bell says Councilman Corey Reeves sent a legislative specialist to Bell's home last night to see whether she actually lives there.
This after Reeves filed challenges to her residency with the Fulton County Board of Elections. Fox 5's Christopher King is live at the South Fulton City Hall. Christopher.
Courtney Russ, according to the police report, Councilwoman-elect Keisha Bell says someone showed up at her home. The report says she believes Corey Reeves, the councilman, sent that person, but Reeves says no one from his office harassed her.
I personally just feel victimized.
Councilwoman-elect Keisha Bell says Wednesday night, someone from the office of Councilman Corey Reeves showed home on High Tide Drive in South Fulton to find out if she actually lived there.
I was given information that a city employee and someone from his office did, in fact, visit my...
According to a report from South Fulton Police, Bell said Reeves, quote, sent the legislative specialist Tomika Leverett and her home association president to her residence to harass her.
I do feel like I've been harassed through this process.
Bell says she was not there at the moment. Her aunt answered the door. Bell says she did not expect the visitors.
It did have me shaken. It did have me concerned about my safety.
Did someone from your office show up to her home?
No. Nobody from my office showed up from her home.
Bell last week defeated Reeves, the incumbent, in a runoff for the District 5 seat. Reeves denies any wrongdoing. Did somebody from your office harass her?
Nobody from my office harassed her. The HOA president took documents over there with the notary to ask the person who lives there to verify does Keisha Bell lives at that address.
And do you live there?
I do.
Reeves filed a challenge with the Fulton County Board of Elections questioning if Bell was registered to vote in South Fulton and if she was even eligible to run for the District 5 seat. The board on Thursday rejected his challenge.
We presented evidence pertaining to the voter registration. They didn't see fit that it would carry merit, so they dismissed it.
Now, Bell filed a complaint with South Fulton Police. They are investigating, and Reeves calls the complaint false. Live in South Fulton, Christopher King, Fox.
Effect in California. Anyone under 21 years old are barred from buying certain types of long guns and rifles amid the legal challenge against Senate Bill 1161. The judge said California presented persuasive expert evidence of threats of violence perpetrated by people in that age range. Lorenz wrote, since 2020, 18 to 20-year-olds have been involved in several mass shootings. Those shootings have led to the deaths of dozens of children and adults, including the May 22 shootings at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, and a supermarket in Buffalo, New York. The plaintiffs, including Firearms Policy Coalition, are suing California's Attorney General, among others, saying current age-based gun laws violate the Second Amendment rights of individuals between the ages of 18 and 20 by prohibiting access to firearms in common use throughout the United States. According to the Firearms Policy Coalition, more than a dozen U.S. states currently have active federal lawsuits regarding firearms. In Santa Clara, California, David Lamb, NTD News.
Eighth night of Hanukkah.
I know what that is.
Protests have been planned for multiple cities across the some causing traffic disruptions.
Well, President Biden's national security advisor met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today as those calls for a ceasefire continue. Reports say National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told Israeli officials to pull back on their offensive. But Prime Minister Netanyahu said that despite great pain and international pressure, nothing will stop Israel. The UN describes the ongoing humanitarian conditions there as a living hell. Well, the Department of Defense is once again urging Congress to pass
The money is running out. He says a lack of funds could impact Ukraine's war efforts and America's military readiness.
We need supplemental funding to provide additional support to Ukraine as we go into 2024. We've got about $4.6 billion left, $4.4 billion left, I think, now with the most recent PDA, and presidential drawdown authority, and about $1 billion left in replenishment funds.
Congress has approved more than $110 billion in aid for Ukraine since Russia's February 2022 invasion. It hasn't approved any new funds since Republicans took over the House from Democrats last January.
Wellstar is closing yet another care center vital to One Metro Atlanta. I'm Rokan Steele.
Hey, we've got I have to risk by tomorrow. As we load into the weekend, it's changed. It's way windy.
Yeah.
Details next.
Respectful, also not surprised. It's life or death, and it could be, unfortunately, death if we don't get some help immediately.
Wellstar will make its exit from the healthcare business on the south side after the new year, closing the urgent care center that once was Atlanta Medical Center South.
We can't go all the way to Grady Hospital on some emergencies. Even ambulances take 20, 30, 40 minutes.
State Senator Donzella James lives in East Point. She introduced legislation earlier this year to allow the city of East Point and South Fulton to form their own hospital authorities, which would give them oversight of what would come next.
Now all we need to do is form this hospital authority, and we have already gone through the resolutions, we've gone through the approvals.
But Kiara Stanford, who also lives in East Point and is the healthcare director for the group The New Georgia Project, thinks that would be letting Wellstar off the hook.
It's not lost on us that Wellstar is accountable for this decision, and at the very least, that they should be able to lend a hand to the city in these types of situations.
Stanford thinks that could look like Wellstar donating the old building to the new hospital authority. But State Senator James says this is urgent.
Sooner the better. And so we don't want people to die.
Wellstar says it will invest $5 million over the next 5 years to help expand the neighboring Southside Medical Center East Point Clinic. But Stanford says the Wellstar closures have disproportionately impacted poor and working-class families, the majority of whom are black. Earlier this year, the NAACP filed federal discrimination complaints.
It almost feels like Grady is becoming like the black healthcare system, which is ridiculous because it's healthcare. I don't know whether it's black or white. It's for everybody. All people need healthcare accessibility.
Again, last day of business at this urgent care facility will be on
I agree
January
with
12th.
that.
I reached out to Wellstar to see if we could sit down with some of their executives, but that request was denied. In
They're
East Point,
closing
Mario
it
Enzo,
because
Fox 5 News.
they want to.
Rob, thanks very much. Chief Meteorologist David Chanley is